right, people, here we go. Let's do this. Kick back, relax, give us a call.
Breakfast is ready.
Kaylee, take my car. Turn back.
No, don't do that.
What do you want with me?
Damn that girl. Vous allez participer à ce rendez-vous.
Let's go, wrap it up. Let's go.
Good morning, all of you. How are you?
Hello. Very
Hello,
good,
Charlie.
thanks. Very good.
Hello,
Hi.
Ian. How are
Good to see
you?
you.
So look at that. Look at that. Okay, so you are that side. So I'm gonna go that way.
Okay.
Do I look as good as you? Oh my god.
Better, way better.
Better? I don't think so.
No,
I
you've,
don't
got,
think
you've,
so.
got the, you've got the backgrounds to kind of like.
I do. Yeah. Where are you, Charlie?
I'm in the south of France.
South of France. Oh, this
Yeah,
is my
where I live.
country. Cool.
That's where I live.
Ian, where are you?
I'm in London right now.
London. Okay, this is not the first time we have people from London this year for the 10th anniversary. We have a lot of movies.
Yeah,
and a lot of movies
congratulations,
from
by the
London.
way.
Yeah. So you live in France. Tell me about
I
it.
do. Well, I have lived here for 3 years now, and
Okay.
my reason before that I was living in the south of England in Brighton, which is kind of like it's like London on Sea, they call it, but it was my
Really?
compromise to not coming immediately to France from London with my wife, who's from the south of France. But
You married a French woman.
I
That's
did.
why.
I did. Well, she forced me to. Actually, I was forced into it. No, but yeah. So, I mean, eventually, it just seemed obvious to come here because we've got kids, and it was good that as I was going away touring a lot, it's good to have the family nearby to look after the kids.
Makes
So,
sense.
but in fact, that's what led us to make the video near
In
here.
here, because it was we're gonna come back to that. First, I got one question. How
Yeah.
did you two guys meet, Ian and Charlie? How did you meet?
That's a good question. Yeah, Ian can answer this one.
I made some music videos for a guy called Coca, who is a hip hop artist, UK artist. And I think at some point he was talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, but there was a collaboration potentially between the two of you.
Yeah.
And management basically connected us after you saw Keane there, I think. And then we began the process of talking about doing something together. Didn't quite materialize the first time around. And then as soon as I was opening, yeah.
Okay, so it was a professional relationship, a professional connection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, out of the sort of passion to make art, really. I mean, Ian and I have had hours and hours of conversations about various different films that we've wanting to make together, and this is one of them that's materialized out of many. We're now working on another little one, which we started around the same time, but as well as making films for my music, we've also wanted to make films just for the joy of making film. And actually, no, I tell you what, when I had a moment where I got a bit of a bad injury, and I was on my back for quite a long time, and I just bought a load of camera gear like A7S, Sony A7S, and a whole load of stuff that I wanted to make a documentary in Africa and Malawi about my friend who's done loads of work for the ivory trade, against the ivory trade. Anyway, and so it didn't happen because I ended up getting this injury. And at that time, it was shortly after I met Ian, and he recommended loads of amazing books to read on filmmaking.
And how to use the equipment and how to make the best out of it, I guess.
Yeah, and so I read all these books, and then I was just like calling him a lot, and we were just talking about them. And that's how we just sparked up this relationship. And from there on, we've just had all these other projects, spin-offs that we wanted to make. But this was one, naturally, because I then went back to making an album. These music videos, this one, and also the music video he made for my first single on the last album called The Weekend. They kind of went to the forefront just because I was doing a record campaign.
So the music video, let's call it a music video from now, but we're gonna go back to that after. Selected running for best music video this year at the Paris Art and Movie Awards. You are next to independent filmmakers. You are next to uprising talents. We have music videos from Taiwan, the UK, France, the USA. It's not the first time, Ian, that music video, Lost in the Memory, gets selected to a festival.
Yeah, I won Best Director at Unrestricted View Film Festival. But Weekend, Lost in the Memory, we've been very selective about where we put it out. We haven't been spamming, partly because initially, if I'm being honest, I wasn't sure whether it should be seen as a music video or documenting a live performance. And in the end, I realized that actually it works as a self-contained piece because the song only exists in that format as a live piece of music. I mean, there's the studio version, but it is very, very different. Very different. So I kind of figured, having spoken to Charlie, it is a music video, but it's also a documentary. It's a documentary that has the aesthetics of a music video and I think hopefully the emotion of a music video, but the form factor, technically, we documented the process of Charlie and Vashti recording that song live. So the audio you hear is the actual audio from the day.
Yeah, you call it, when you submitted the music video to us, in the description, there is a very obvious sentence saying that it's a hybrid. You define it as a hybrid music video and documentary. Music video because you have music and video, basically, but hybrid because you documented. It's a one take. It's a one take music video. So everything that you see is more real because when you only have one take, I mean, even if you have tiny mistakes and missteps and everything, you keep it if the emotion is good. So the goal was to create an emotion, not to do, let's say, in the usual music video. Am I correct?
Absolutely, definitely. Yeah. And I think the same applies to the music too, because Charlie will be able to talk to you more about this, but I remember the thing that kept on being mentioned on the day was about Earth and Astral Weeks. The idea of kind of having this idea, mistakes and all, with a texture and an honesty that would really resonate with an audience in a way that maybe it wouldn't if it had been gone through the process of editing and glossing up. And there's probably one moment on visuals. The DOP, Alfred Thurl, is amazing. He's going to kill me for mentioning this, but there's a slight soft element at one point. But I love it because you can see that there's an honesty about that. It's very, very brief. Charlie is off for a very, very short period of time. But I think it adds something really interesting, especially and accidentally, in conjunction with the area of the song. There's a correlation between that, and it seems to work really nicely. So I love that stuff.
You know what? Go, Charlie. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add by saying that the most important part of making any kind of piece of art, I think, is story, and having what are you trying to tell? What's the story you're trying to tell? And behind the the music, the song itself is talking about the sort of the theatre of a relationship breakdown that we often don't see, and that happens, you know, with men who are very, you know, usually quite stoic and usually working and then carry on going to work, and they don't really talk about that their emotional side of their life. And so the idea of the song was inspired by being this great big empty house, and that really was the seed of the idea for everything, because it was also important to show that make it a vulnerable piece, in the sense I grew up doing a lot of theatre, and in comparison to film, what I liked about theatre, but I like putting this into film as well, is that you can show all the behind the scenes stuff, and it makes it a bit more vulnerable, the response, the way people react to what they're seeing, because they realize they're seeing something that's actually very honest and real. And so that was important for us not to shy away from that too much, to try and keep it really honest and show that, okay, there might be a few mistakes here and there, but that just proves that this is not a perfect piece. This is something which is honest.
This is what makes theater and stage work so honest, because you see everything that's happening. There is no editing, there is no trick. And even when you have a performer forgetting the line or getting a little sideways, it creates instantly, instead of creating a distance with the creation, it creates a connection with the audience. The honesty, the vulnerability is just something that works very well. Let's take a quick look. Take a quick look at it so people can figure a little bit more.
Could I just add one more thing, Matt? Just one more little thing to that. I think that's the beauty of this film, is that it crosses the line between a piece of film and a piece of theatre, and it's really almost like a dogma film in a way, because we had to use natural light, we had to use natural sound, and it's really just working off all the elements that were given to us without trying to impose too much.
We're gonna go back to that. That was actually my next question. Let's take a look at it and go back to it.
Run to your daddy, my love, he sings. I'll do my best to pretend there's nothing wrong. Let's both sing our song. Run.
My bad. So you said right before you shot in a big empty house. Was it your house, Charlie?
No, it was the house that I was staying in
during self-isolation.
No,
COVID. No,
it was a grand similar period, but it was. I was doing some recording, and it was kind of the time of doing the recording for the record, some of the record, and it was just that I was there because the studio where I was recording didn't have any accommodation, so we took on this house, and every there, and I was just kind of playing guitar, and I was thinking, wow, every time I walked into a different space, the acoustics were different, and I started playing that song because I knew that it was one of the songs on the album. And it just, so first of all, my idea was we should record the song here. And then I started to talk about with the studio engineers whether we could take the studio to the house to record it.
To take advantage of the acoustics of it.
Yeah, and also then I was just thinking the light in this place is incredible, and it would be a real waste not to document this in some way. And so, of course, at first, you know, the first idea is just document it with your iPhone, and then it kind of built until I end up calling Ian and say, Ian, I've got this idea, and proposing it to him, and he goes, that would be amazing as a one-take shot. And it's like, okay, so now we're in a whole other ball game, and then here we are today.
So natural light, natural sound. Ian, you decided to make things complicated with this one. I mean, it's more than a challenge. One take already is a challenge in filmmaking, but using natural light and natural sound, that makes it just even harder, does it?
It makes it a really fun challenge because I had already done several one-take videos, in my feature film we had lots of very, very long take shots. So I kind of become well versed in how to do that in a way that I felt would kind of maintain interest. So the thing is to an extent, after Charlie kind of told me what the plan was, when I flew over to the location, he walks me around the villa, and of course the stairwell sounds completely different to the bedroom, which sounds completely different to the hallway, which sounds completely different to the main living area. And after I realized that, Charlie wanted the freedom to be able to move around and get those different sounds as he was recording, it in a way dictated the process, because the only way to capture that without getting in the way was to follow or to lead in a single take on a Steadicam. And we could have had a backup camera too, but after doing a rehearsal and Charlie literally walking me through with the guitar and singing the song, Charlie's performance was so powerful and so moving, I felt, and so engrossing, that if we cut away, I felt it would diminish the power of what Charlie was doing, because it completely pulls you in. And so then it was a case of, okay, I know that we need to do this as a one take. Now we have to figure out how we're going to do it. And we have to figure out if there's enough space. We have to figure out if we can do that with the camera crew without knocking over microphones, which it turns out we can't, because we knocked over microphones non-stop, and without blowing the audio kind of every other take.
So basically, this is one camera on one Steadicam.
Yeah.
So that's one guy, and you have mics all over the place to capture what Charlie's singing and playing live, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
So the shooting was only one guy. That's it.
One Steadicam guy. So we had our director of photography was Alfred Thurl, who's also a Frenchman, who's a very good friend of mine. I've been working with for a long time. He also lives in London, so he came out also to France to kind of figure out how to do this. So he brought his focus puller, a guy called Mike, who was just incredibly talented, because he had to do it by eye. He had to pull focus by eye. There were no measurements, because we never knew where Charlie was going to go at any given time. So we had to kind of just be alert. Then we did have one light. We had one light in a room that was so dark, where Charlie sits down on an amp, which is also the room where we go soft for a split second. That was the only time where we had no choice but to put light, and the rest of it was all natural light. So what we did was it was, in a sense, the purest form of collaboration, because on a music video, for example, the audio is pre-recorded. It's really, you just do as many takes as you need to with, your artist miming, and until you have the right kind of performance. Well, we were very conscious about, first of all, giving equal respect to the audio guys. And if anything, they had priority over us, because first and foremost, this was about getting the perfect audio. The second thing was, we didn't want to wear out Charlie, or Vashti, because there's only so many times that you can sing a song before your throat might start hurting, or before you get a bit tired out. Yeah. And on top of that, the Steadicam was heavy. And Thomas Burgess, who was the Steadicam guy, he's not, he's a very strong guy, but he's human. He gets tired and sweaty like everybody else.
Yeah.
We had to.
Well, we had the light as well, and natural light. I mean, we had the sun to compete with.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because the more takes you do, the more the sun moves. So the light is going to change in every room.
Yeah, it really was. Well, the actual take that you see, the final take, was our last chance before the sun was literally just going to dip behind the
I've been there.
Horizon.
We recognised that was happening around about 2:00, and because we could see that everybody was getting a little bit tired, because although it's a slow piece, emotionally, physically, mentally, it's very draining to do that, to capture the right kind of energy. We consciously chose to pause until what time? Around about 5:00, I'd say, Charlie. You think? Well, we knew that the sun was coming down, because we knew it would be best at that point, based on how it was at that particular moment. We then had kind of a 2-hour rest, where we kind of looked through the footage, kind of worked out what was effective, what wasn't. Also to see where we could tighten up in terms of some of the camera angles, reflections, how we could use those reflections. And then we had 2 more goes. The penultimate version, I think we knocked the microphone, which meant even though the video was pretty much, it was very good. It wasn't good. So we had to scrap it immediately. And then we did the final one. We knew that we had only that chance to do it. We cut. I shouted out to audio, was that okay? They came running in, the whole team were hiding in the kitchen, which had turned into a kind of makeshift studio. And they said, "Oh, we got it, we got it, we got it!" And everybody jumped up to do it. And
Cool.
5 minutes later,
How many takes in total? How many takes did you guys had to do for this music video?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was close to 20.
20 takes? Wow.
20.
Yeah, it was a lot.
We realized that at some point after we'd rehearsed it enough in the morning, and I think even just walking it through the day before, we kind of realized that there was no point in doing an entire take if I had one of us bumped a microphone, or if the Steadicam had kind of not been perfect. So sometimes after maybe 25 seconds into the song, we would just to make sure everybody was rested to kind of maintain that energy. So yeah,
because of the way of the camera, because if you know already that you're not going to use the take, you don't want to waste people's time, and you want to go back from square one. Yeah, basically.
That's it. To preserve the emotion of Charlie's performance, which was absolutely instrumental, no pun intended, in making sure that this was going to work.
Charlie, you had to sing live, which is never the case in a music video. So, and 25 takes or so. So that means at some point, even the voice may be in a different place where it was supposed to be at some point. Did you feel any pressure? Did you feel any challenge you were able to rise to?
Without meaning to sound arrogant, no, I didn't really. I mean, I just enjoyed myself, and every time I did I think when I'm in that kind of situation, I mean, I'm the kind of artist, I'm the kind of musician who's, I thrive in those kind of environments where I in an unusual space. And as I said to you earlier, I did a lot of theatre, and a lot of the kind of theatre that I did was called promenade theatre, where you take and you walk them around a space. And a lot of the theatre I did was devised theatre. So it wasn't like we had arrived and have a script and everything ready. It was a piece that we, over a course of weeks or months, we'd devise the show and make the show. So for me, it was completely normal process, really, to just play a song and then get to the end and then say, oh, can we try this and just change this, and then you do it again. And so
you enjoyed the process. You enjoyed singing the song and making.
And I love the process of film anyway. But I think this was even more special because, as we established earlier on, it does cross that line between theatre and film. So it kept it really fresh for me, because every time there was a new. I think the only challenge I had was just how to make sure that I performed the song with the same amount of emotion and intention. So that if it was the take, at least I was happy with my performance. But that was the only real challenge. Other than that,
so you said you felt something fresh about making this music video in particular. You've made a lot of music videos, so how does this experience stand out in the creative process? Do you have a special relationship with Ian that makes it, I don't know, more fun, more easy to work with? Because even when you shoot usual music videos on location and everything, that's fun too, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, every time. I mean, but it's interesting because I think the best comparison against this video would be the other music video that I made with Ian, and that was during the same period of my record with a different song, and but that video was like the totally opposite working experience, because I hardly saw him all day. He was working with loads of extras, and we had to cut there was really like precise cuts that we had to make and get it right down to the second, and that was a completely different experience. Whereas this was really like we were constantly bantering and talking about it all day. So I wouldn't like to call myself the director of the film, because it was Ian. He was directing the film, but it was very much more of a collaborative experience on the day. So that, and also I think it was not just collaborative between Ian and myself, but also everybody involved. Like everyone was as important as each other. The sound people were really had their bit to say, and the focus puller and the director of photography, everyone had their part to play, and we all heard them. So that was really interesting.
So Ian, you've been in a position to make unusual hybrid music video with Charlie, and you've also been in a position for the same album to make a classic music video. So how does it compare on your perspective?
Well, so it's interesting because the other video that I made was also it was a one-take video too. But
you're a stubborn man.
He's one-take wonder.
But it wasn't technically a one-take video. I mean, it was a very big deal. We had a really, really massive soundstage studio in London. We had 100 extras or something like that. Like 5 sets. We were kind of doing a pastiche of classical Hollywood and classical musicals. And Charlie had to move from one set to another, and there were kind of costume changes and really technical, a lot of visual effects, very, very kind of big production, all to achieve a one-take video. And the video has done very, very well. It won lots of awards, and it was great. But for me,
what's the song?
Weekend.
The Weekend.
But for me, despite the kind of the scale being far, far bigger in some ways than the other one, this was the video that I preferred, because the intimacy of the production, as Charlie was saying, how close I got to work with him, and also just my favorite thing about filmmaking. And Matt, I know you're a filmmaker too, so you can probably, I'm sure you'll have input with this. Is the collaboration is always the greatest thing.
This is why we make movies and films,
because
it's working with other people, the humans.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And I don't have all the best ideas. I know there's this conceit. Don't tell anyone. But on this, for example, Charlie had lots of incredible ideas. Vashti had incredible ideas. The cinematographer, our Steadicam guy, Thomas. I had an idea of what I wanted to happen. But again, Thomas, being a specialist in that role, said, could I suggest instead that for this particular shot we try this, because the Steadicam works much better doing this.
Yeah,
and we get improved shots. So all this input from people who were really at the top of the game just meant that we had the most beautiful collaborative atmosphere where everybody felt confident to bring ideas, all to achieve the best possible results. And you'd like to think that happens on every single production, whether it's film, music video, documentary.
No, the magic does not happen all the time.
That's correct.
What's really, really interesting about that is that it's exactly the approach I was taking to my record as well, to making the record. And it didn't even occur to me until I just heard Ian saying all that stuff just then. And I was like, oh yeah, mate, that's bizarre, because the way that I talked about the story of my last album, Square One, was that I went to the studio with more of a team, and I actually was cooking most of the time while everyone else was working on the music, and we set up 3 studios around the studio, and I just let everyone work and get loads of ideas and bring them forward to me, and then mixed and matched and chose them with them, and it was really like a spin-off of that when we did this video. So I think that's kind of maybe why stars aligned as well, because sometimes it does start with being in the mood, having that mood, and you talk with that vocabulary, you talk with that kind of language, and then people feed off that, and that's how the ideas grow.
So that's a team effort. It's a creative team effort. Was shot in France, correct? That house was in France.
Yeah.
The name of the town?
Saint Raphael, or not? It's not Saint Raphael, but it's near Saint Raphael.
It's in the neighborhood of Saint Raphael. Okay. The album is out already?
Yeah, it's been out.
It is.
Sometime
Okay.
now, yeah.
And the music video we are talking about, to remind everyone, is listed as best music video in competition, and the results are going to be announced in a few days, next week. You are up to some other very good and very special music videos this year from many different countries. I have one question for Charlie, and then I have another one question for you, Ian. We're going to digress a little bit from the music video. Charlie, you have a special relationship with France because you live here, because I didn't know, but your wife is French. I know that now. What I mean is, I was still living in France when your song Hobo, Like a Hobo, came out. Yeah. And it was a breakthrough song, really. After that, everybody knew who you are, and the song was just amazing. Am I correct if I say it's that song that put you on the map?
Yeah, definitely.
What changed after that? How does, when you are a new artist coming up, that was the first album, was it?
Yeah, it was my first. Well, it was my first official released
First
album.
released album. Yeah.
I'd made another album before that, but it was
so the first released album, first breakout song. Does your life as an artist really drastically change from one day to another, or does it come gradually on a human perspective?
Well, I think it's. I mean, it depends how you look at it. It depends how we measure change, really, because the strange thing is that when you have that experience, so many people at the time were saying to me, "Don't change, don't change," and at the same time, other people were also asking me, so what are you going to do next? Are you going to do something different?
Yeah.
And then they're saying, and then they don't want me to change, and I'm like, what does that mean? Because if I don't change, I'm going to be really screwed here, because you have to adapt to the new situation. At that time I just moved to Paris. I had the idea of being in Paris, smoking Beurois, drinking coffee and writing poetry in cafes. I thought that was going to be my life in 2009, and it ended up like jumping in taxis and going from this radio station to the station, talking about myself constantly. I mean, I was so bored of myself after 2 years that
people don't realize how challenging, how boring it becomes for artists to promote the work. It's fun. I mean, some of it. I mean, I like radio very much. For example, I think radio has some tenderness when you're in a studio and you're promoting on radio. It's very different than when you go on TV or other things. But you have to keep saying the same thing all the time.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That gets, at some point, just want to do something different.
No, completely. So that's the irony is that I got to the end of that 2 years, and I to get away from the whole experience, I went to LA to start working on making my second album, and I sort of saw this girl in a restaurant, and I was like very attracted to her, so I talked to her and ended up being a French girl, and now she's my wife. So,
wow.
And it's from Nice, where half my band were from as well. So there's just like all these bizarre coincidences. Anyway,
like you said before, sometimes the stars align, and you just have to take what comes on your lap. It's
exactly. But to kind of answer your question, I think one thing that I did quite early on when I saw how quickly things were exploding was I got myself a kind of a life coach, as it were, somebody that I could talk to regularly, someone trying to sort of just be a barometer about my experience and help me kind of make the right decisions based on what I felt was right and wrong. And
you sound like a very down-to-earth guy. I mean, this is the first time in all the interviews I've run that I hear someone saying, okay, I wanted to adapt the most in the best way to my new life, and I hired a coach to keep me grounded and having someone to talk to. I mean, you are definitely, you're not an American. It's
no, I'm not. I'm English.
Charlie has genuinely zero ego. Oh, he's just the most honest guy. One of my favorite people in the world. Big hugs and love, true. But yeah, Charlie is not like a typical superstar. The guy is super down to earth. It's amazing how it really is.
Well, all I'm interested in is making art, really. To be honest, that's all I want to do. And I just I feel like if there's anything getting in the way of that, then it's just sad. It's just a shame because we've got so much potential to contribute to this world that we live in, all the people, and I think one day we'll be dead. So why let ego get in the way?
Ian, regarding your previous work, I didn't know that when we selected your music video, but you've been co-directing a documentary called The Banksy Job that premiered at Tribeca.
That's right. Yeah, it was a few years ago.
It was 2016. Google tells me it was 2016. It's I've heard about the documentary. I've seen the documentary on all the streaming platforms everywhere. And this morning, when I was double checking some of the information I had, I would say, he's the guy who made that, and that's pretty amazing. I encourage people to watch the trailer of the Banksy job. The trailer is one of these pieces of commercial that really makes you want to watch the documentary. Can you tell us a little bit about this documentary and this adventure?
Yeah. We met this guy called AK-47, who is a real-life self-proclaimed art terrorist, whatever that means. And he runs this organization called the Art Qaeda. And effectively, he goes around he used to go around stealing prominent works of art for real and holding them to ransom. So he stole some Tracy Emin work. He stole various people, Bill Bruford. And then one day, Banksy, the artist Banksy, he had made a pastiche of Rodin's The Thinker with a traffic cone in his head called Drinker. And it was about 15 feet tall. And he had left it really big. So AK-47 and his band of merry men decided one day to pull up in the middle of the day in the busiest area of London by far with a flatbed truck, hivers outfits, kind of working outfits, and they blindfolded the statue, put it onto the back of a truck with a jib, and held it to ransom. And it's the only time ever that Banksy has come out to respond to something. And effectively, this very, very bizarre 10-year feud began between the two of them, all centering around this giant statue. But the interesting component of this is we kind of delved into the concept of ownership of art. There's a rule in this country that if you lose something, if I find a wallet that's filled with, £50, and I take it to the police and say, I found a wallet and it has £50 in it, after a certain amount of time, if nobody else claims it, you become the legal owner and you can keep the wallet and you can keep the money. So in this case, AK-47, being a smart guy, realized that Banksy wasn't commissioned to make this statue. So he went to the police and said, I would like to file that I found a Banksy statue. And of course, he can't come out and say, well, it's mine because he broke the law. If he does that, he'll be arrested. And so after a certain amount of time, AK-47 became the legal owner of the statue.
Of Banksy statue.
Was worth nearly £1 million. So suddenly he has this very, very valuable piece of work. And the question was whether that was ethical or not, whether there was anything wrong with the idea of taking a statue that was given to the streets and monetizing it and using it for personal gain.
What's interesting in all that also is that stealing the piece of art, stealing this huge statue, it's a stunt. Yeah. So it may be considered as art itself to create the context, to steal the statue and document it and ask a ransom for it, and then becoming the legal owner of it from a theft, from a heist. So that's all fascinating.
Matt, AK-47 would be so happy to hear you say that because he considers himself an artist. That's what he says his art is. His art is performance. Yeah. And the interesting thing is, with the previous examples, Tracy Emin, for example, it's not done out of disrespect. It's done out of reverence. And he is always given the pieces back after he's done the initial stunt.
Yeah.
So he claims that's a consistency in his art.
Yeah.
The problem with this particular situation was that after he found out the statue was worth a lot of money, rather than hiding it, he kept it in his back garden in Hackney. He only has a small fence, so anybody could just see the statue, this £1 million statue that had already made news. It'd been over the Guardian, the Daily Mail, all the main newspapers. It'd been on TV. Well, he went to Amsterdam, came back, and the statue had been stolen again from his back.
He stole the statue, and he got stolen of it after that.
Right. But the people that stole it didn't realize that the only bit that Banksy had actually made was the traffic cone on the head. They thought that AK-47 had put the traffic cone on the statue himself, so they took it off when they stole it and left it.
Oh, the irony! The irony!
I'll tell you one more quick thing about this because it really is such a surreal story. But years later, it became this kind of party piece. He'd go to these parties and he'd say, "Oh, I stole this statue, and the Banksy stole it back." But I've got the only bit that Banksy made because Banksy doesn't sculpt, so he had to get these guys to, somebody else to effectively make the statue. So he's at this party and this guy says, well, I know the two guys who actually made that. They're two amazing Ghanaian twins, and they lived next door to Banksy. And he knew that they were artists. I'll introduce you to these guys. So just by chance, through this party, AK-47 met the original sculptors who had the original molds.
Such a small world.
Small world, but because he had the original traffic cone and they had the original molds, he figured that just like Damien Hirst had done, he could technically rebuild the statue and it would still be an original. And that's exactly what he did. So years later, something he has again.
He stole and then he forged. He make a copy of it.
That's right. He claimed it
all in. This guy is all in.
That's right. But he added a toilet seat at the back to turn it into.
Okay. Maybe we're going to have you back someday to talk more about this documentary. I just wanted to give the audience a glimpse of that because I think it's really worth watching. Charlie, back to you. Charlie, let me. It's not a tricky question, okay? But I just want to have you talk a little bit about the look of Charlie Winston.
Okay,
the hat.
Everybody doesn't.
Yeah, the hat. The way you dress, which is elegant, colorful. I mean, you have a brand. What in the music industry we call a brand. Did you come up with that brand yourself, or did you have a marketing team with you? Because you have that brand since the very beginning, or is it really just you, who you are? I'm interested in that.
Well, like I said, the last thing I said before was that I just want to make art, and whether that's music or film or fashion, in whatever context it is, it's just a means of expressing myself. And so when I started being a solo singer, I was doing a lot of gigs in clubs in London, and something that really struck me is that you never get introduced. Now I always, when I have people supporting me or playing, the warm-up slot in my gigs, I always introduce them myself, because I know what it's like when you have to walk out on stage.
Yeah,
and you've got no introduction. You've just got to be there and start entertaining. Anyway, so, and having done a lot of again theatre, I understood the impact of visual cue. And so if you walk out onto stage and you look like you're supposed to be there, and you look like you're supposed to be performing, people immediately take more interest and stop talking and then start listening, and it worked. I mean, but also, well, yeah. I mean, it helped to. It was all about demanding, commanding people's attention, really, and just like you do in film, where you go from major to minor, focus out of that kind of thing. You're doing sort of same thing in a club where you're, at one point everyone's standing around chatting like that, and then the light goes on and someone walks onto the stage, and if that somebody has got some presence, then naturally people's attention change. But where my actual style came from was I was living in London in an area called Stoke Newington, and at that time, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it's changed a lot now. It's become very gentrified, and a lot of the people I'm about to mention had to move out because they couldn't afford it. But there was a lot of Caribbeans. There's a lot of Turkish. There's a lot of Hasidic Jews. It's like a complete mashup of cultures. But on my street, there used to be a lot of guys, old, really elderly Caribbean guys that would walk past, and they were always dressed up in a suit and wearing a hat. And I'd see them and think, "Oh man, I'd love to. It's such a cool style."
Yeah.
And it was kind of at a moment in time in London where the whole vintage thing was coming back, and I grew up, the Mills Brothers and. Well, I loved Charlie Chaplin. I was named after Charlie Chaplin, and this whole kind of like otherworldliness, and so I guess it all contributed to the way I dress. But it's not really cool. It's just I was never one of the cool gang. I just wanted to just express something, and so I
guess you feel comfortable in that look, so that I guess it just helps you to share.
Yeah.
What you create.
Well, the hat was good. The hat with the short brim is quite good for me. I've got a very long head. It's like a sort of egg. So the hat just kind of like rounds it out a bit.
Hearing you talk, I miss London so much. It's been such a long time. I haven't set a foot in London. I just would like to come back there. It's kind of cool. Now, I mean, it's been some time you've been making music and music videos and everything. Was Hobo the first music video you made as an artist?
No.
No.
I'd made
So you had some experience before.
Yeah. I'd made one actually in Peter Gabriel's shower in London with his daughter.
Okay.
I mean, she was shooting the film. I was.
Okay, she was not in the shower with you. She was shooting.
No,
with her.
she's a filmmaker, so she proposed that we make a film, and I suggest it was a shower with a steam room as well, so it was just a double trouble. So we've made this quite funny film called Yes, and also with a great director actually called Heidi Greensmith.
Okay.
Who's got a wonderful film called Winter. It won an award as well, and she was actually, that was the first music video I made. Not many people have seen it actually, but it was for a song called Calling Me, and we made it. It was all about drowning, well, kind of about it's about drowning. It's not about drowning. It's about life after death, but it's the story. Somebody drowns in the film, in the story of the song, and so we went to Babington House in which is like Soho House, it's the same.
Yeah.
Soho House.
Yeah, I know.
So we went to Babington House and asked to borrow their swimming pool, and shot me going underwater and floating about basically. And then also the only other film I'd made was for another version of Hobo, the original version of Hobo. This is an amazing. This was like a dream come true for me, because I had these two animators from Nice yet again approach me and asked me to do an animation of all my drawings as a film, as a music video for Like a Hobo. So if you type in Like a Hobo media art design, you'll find that it's media art, as in like two words in one, design, and Charlie Winston Like a Hobo, and it's all black and white. And it's just basically, I gave them all my books of drawings I'd done, and they turned them into animations. And they used this character of mine called Norman, which is basically like just a figure, a one-line figure. And the whole video was based on that. So that was like the three videos I made, I think, before the Hobo. But then the actual ultimate Hobo film that we made in America, but I've forgotten which state. Not very far away from where you are.
California? Was it California, Nevada, Utah?
Well, it was in. Hang on, where the hell was it? I've completely forgotten. That's terrible. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's like two. Yeah, it's yeah. Oh, God, that's terrible. Oh my
if it
God.
comes back to you, let us know.
But it tapped into the whole vibe of the hobo and the traveling man, and we found this guy with the hat who could do these incredible tricks with the hat. And at first I thought I could do them, but then when I saw him on his like show reel, I was like, we got to get that guy. So it turned into kind of more of an iconic thing, really.
You've also made a duo with a French guy named Soul. The song was Dusty Man. That was also a hit. I mean, I had that song on my MP3 a long time. It was a great song with some country vibes. No?
Yeah. Well, I guess that tapped into everybody's love of hobo, really, because it was like the sort of sequel to Like a Hobo. It was actually a song that was written by Saul. He wrote a song thinking to himself, I'm going to try and write a song like Charlie. I was producing his album at the time. Okay. So I think he had the idea of writing a song that we could sing together as a kind of nice, a nice way to celebrate making an album together. And so that's what happened. And when he played the song to me, I was like, yeah, man, this is a great tune.
This is a great tune. And the music video was just awesome. I mean, all the Western stuff and the saloon and the horses and the dust, all the Far West inspiration was so cool.
It was interesting. It was inspired by True Grit. We wanted to make a kind of Western, but in a more of a wintertime environment. And it was really cold. We made it. It was so cold. Yeah,
that's a story for another time. Again, Ian, you've been working with big names in the commercial industry. You've been working with Nike. You've been working with Gillette. You've been working with Idris Elba. What was that for?
it was just a thing that Idris Elba has a relationship with a broadcaster over here called Sky. So we basically just made a thing together talking about the process of filmmaking, and it was kind of just a broad chat in his old house, I think. And he's great. He was super cool. Just exactly as you want him to be. That's Idris Elba. So I've watched him twice and seen separate times, and he tended to remember me the second time. I don't think he did, but he was very polite about it. It's a cool guy, really nice.
Yeah, and is it a different experience to work in commercials than in music videos? Because sometimes there are similarities. I mean, the editing is a key to the final product. The design and the look of it, the light, is also very important. But usually you don't have the same, let's say, the same goals and the same objective, because a brand wants to achieve a commercial. And a music video, even if it's considered an advertisement, still is a piece of art, which is commercials can be too. So how do you navigate that?
Well, I think commercials is very much about, I mean, I guess music videos are to an extent, but commercials are meeting a brief and fulfilling a goal. And that always comes down, ultimately, whether you like it or not, to generating, revenue. And I hate to talk about money as a filmmaker because it's not something I understand. I'm terrible with money. But the ultimate goal is you sell that product in the most creative way possible to get people to buy it. So with that in mind, a lot of the time, you have to honor and also answer to brand and make sure that you're on brand. And it's in some ways a lot more restrictive, although it's a very good discipline. With music videos, by and large, it's not necessarily a money-making venture because the budgets don't tend to be the same. So it's a lot more about trying to do something, if you're working with the right people, about doing something artistic, creatively fulfilling, and hopefully original. I mean, I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, but I turned down a lot of music videos that I didn't want to do because there was scope to do something creatively original, unique. And if that's the case, there's not really any value for me to do that. I like doing music videos precisely because if they're done in the right way, it's a beautiful, beautiful medium to create something truly artistic. And so diverse. You can do I do a lot of narrative-driven videos too. I've got 2 that are coming out soon that haven't been released yet. I'm super, super proud of. With great actors, working with really, really fantastic actors, very challenging pieces. And then on the flip side of that, you can do these kind of hybrid, things as I'm discovering, like I did with Charlie. And I have a video coming out with an artist that Charlie actually produced, where I've taken the concept of a kind of hybrid video and taken it to kind of in a different direction, but also half documentary and half kind of music video. So I think music videos are just real opportunities to play form, creativity.
I totally agree with that. It's I wouldn't have said it better. So Charlie, you're producing one of the next pieces Ian is directing, and can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, it's more of a jazz album, really. I mean, well, I wouldn't actually call it a jazz album. It's again a big mismatch of different influences. It's an amazing artist called Danny Keane, and he was playing for me and my band for some time, since 2012. But he's a pianist and a cellist, and he's very accomplished at both. And he was also playing for artists like Anushka Shankar and Nitin Sone, and the founder of Ethio Jazz called Mulatu Atstake. And so he got a lot of the musicians that he had been working with in those bands, including Mulatu, who plays a little bit on the album, to get in on this album he was making. I mean, his album, it started out where he was on tour with me, and he was always talking about the album that he wanted to make, and eventually I was like, Danny, you're gonna just have to make your album, okay? Stop talking about it. I'll tell you what, I'll produce your album, and let's do it. And so we did it, and we went, and it was a real labor of love, and we really took our time over it. But man, the musicians and the quality of his compositions were so strong that it was really, over time, it became very clear that he had something special. And so when we got to the end of making the album, I said to him, look, we can't afford to just release this album like this. So let's find a label, let's give it home. And so we did that, and we again took our time to do that. And I'm really hats off to Danny for taking his time, because now it's got Mojo Magazine UK awarded it album of the month, and it's got 8 or 9 stars in Uncut Magazine, and it's being played all over. It's getting playlisted all over the place. And so having Ian on board to make some of the videos was just a natural next step, really, because it's just a very creative thing. The thing I've seen what Ian's been doing for Danny, and it's just beautiful. It's so it's such a beautiful piece of work. It really is. I don't know if I can say anything about it. No, I mean, I'll let you do that. But but I'm really excited for this particular piece to come out.
You say you produced this artist album. Does that mean you were behind the machine to record and to?
There's so many different. There's
so many different words to the meaning to the word produce. So.
Yeah, these days, like I mean, some artists, some musical artists call themselves producers, and in fact, all they do is just write songs on a computer, and that somehow means they're a producer. But the world I grew up in as a producer is that you're helping somebody achieve their vision, and because when you're doing it all on your own as a solo artist, it's very difficult. It's kind of a bit more like a producer. No, it's not like a film producer. Sorry, no, I won't go down that road. It's different because they don't.
If we go there, that's going to be complicated.
Yeah. Really, Danny had a whole bunch of ideas, and like Saul as well, and other artists I've worked with. Usually, it just starts with a conversation, and they'll send. I say, just send me what you've got, and they send me all the stuff, and then I talk to them about where they're at in their life. It's more like being a psychotherapist, really, to where they're at, the kind of thing they want to get to, and then trying to bring all of that ideology mixed with the art together in a succinct piece of work. And I love it. I mean, I love being that role, because first, it's not about me. It's just about the work. And secondly, it's just such a thrilling experience to see somebody's universe come into play as something that other people that's palatable for other people. Yeah. So and so when you finally put all of that together, and then it starts to get awarded album of the month and such, it's just like it's a really good feeling.
Yeah. Do you speak French, Charlie?
Oui, je parle français, ouais. C'est pas
parfait. So you speak French with your wife, or you speak English with your wife?
I met her in LA, so her English was perfect when I met her. Well, her American English was perfect. She got a bit freaked out when she came to London. She couldn't understand my dad at all. Now that we live in France, it's important for our kids to speak French at school and English at home, so we speak English.
And that's very good for them. I mean, you need to speak multiple language. I mean, it's much better than to get a job and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, everything you just told us is amazing and very, very interesting. And thank you for giving us the chance to pull the curtains and look behind the scenes to what you did.
Thank you.
What you created. Is there anything else you would like to say about the music video Lost in the Memory that we missed, or anything you would like to add?
If I could just mention the grade, we were very lucky to get a guy called Johnny Thorpe from Glassworks to do the coloring, and he created the entire piece, because I really think that the grading is sensational on it. I mean, I was happy with it, but it took it to a level. It captured the melancholy of the song and the pain of the sort of thing. Really made it beautiful. So I'd be remiss about
for the people who may not know that the grading is the way you correct the color on a piece, because usually we shoot with cameras that are so high definition that you shoot on gray levels. Let's make it easy, and then you have to give it to an editor and to a color grader. So the color grader is going to put back the natural colors, the tone of the skin, the color of the sky and everything. They're going to work on that. And basically, color grade is going to help you set a tone in the film. And that's what you're talking about.
That's right. And enhance what cinematographer's already done and figure out a look that will work with the video to kind of elevate it to the next level, I guess. And that's what Johnny did. We were so lucky to have him. He was fantastic.
It's a big piece because of the natural light. It must have been a challenge because the light changes all the time, but still he's got some very great identified source of lighting which are natural, so that must have been great to work with. I mean, I don't know him, but I enjoy that.
There's just one thing I'd like to finally add, because about the video, and that is my two favorite parts of this video, which are a perfect example of when things just stars align. And the first is the weather. It was just the most obscure day for the south of France, where we had this incredible sunshine, and the location, of course, was incredible. But there's that shot which you showed at the beginning of this live, where I'm sitting in the chair, and I didn't even notice this for most of the day until just at the end. I was looking at myself, and then this tree was going completely mental outside. And the thing I loved about that was everything contributed to the emotional weight of the song and the piece of work. And the other little piece that did the same thing was that when you see my sister Vashti singing in front of the painting, and then she turns and she walks out of the door, well, then you follow me around, and the camera comes around like that and meets me with the windows behind me. At first, you'll see what looks like my sister standing there on the other side of the window where she would have ended up. And then it comes into focus and you realize it's a tree. And so it just really highlighted this whole ghostly aspect of her, which we were trying to play. And it's not something that many people will notice, but if you look out for it, it just really plays into the whole emotion of the piece.
And it makes sense with the lyrics of the song and the whole purpose of the story you're telling with that music video. Guys, thanks a lot for your time. It's been an hour and I enjoyed it really. And I wish you the best of luck for the results of the Paris Art and Movie Awards. Results are going to be announced on the 24th next week. And you are lined up for Best Music Video. And I mean, I wish you luck and thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks for the as well.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, people, here we go. Let's do this. Kick back, relax.